Hi, I'm Chris, horror filmmaker and fanatic, here trying something new. Welcome to Fright Mix, the new series where I go over 3 horror films that span the wide range of horror, from soft, simple little scary films all the way to the hardcore extreme stuff. Not only will this series allow more horror reviews from yours truly, but it also provides us a space for all kinds of different fans of horror to come together and experience the wide range that the genre allows. Not only do I want newcomers of the genre to be introduced to films that'll help ease them into a genre that tends to scare off a lot of newcomers, but you'll also hear about moderate popular horror films, and then for the horror buffs out there that are looking for a challenge, I will provide something on the more extreme side that only like real hardcore fans of horror would probably like. And it's not a guarantee that I even like any of these films. I'm gonna start off with recommending films that I like, of course, but sometimes in the extreme category, they're popular and people want to hear about them, but they're probably not that good, and I've seen a fair amount of bad horror movies. But let's begin with the first horror film, Upgrade. Upgrade came out in 2018 and is not really actually a horror film, so it fits perfectly in the soft category because it ain't horror. It's really a sci-fi action movie with elements of thriller and horror mixed in. Quick plot synopsis of Upgrade is it is about a man in the near distant future who is paralyzed during a horrific incident where people attack him, and then he is given an AI chip in the back of his brainstem that allows his brain to communicate with his body and be able to move again via the AI chip. However, the twist is that the AI chip has a voice of its own, and if you know anything about AI-based movies, well, when an AI has a voice and a mind of its own, things can kind of go a little crazy. I watched this film for the first time just a few days ago, and I instantly loved it. It was one of those rare instances where I watch a film and right away I'm like, oh, that was great. I actually had a great time. The unique takeaway of this film is without a doubt its action sequences. These fight scenes are shot in such a unique, compelling way that I have never seen done before. This film is directed by Leigh Whannell, who also directed The Invisible Man from 2020. And if you saw that movie and you kind of were like, well, the action sequences are really cool and unique, this is where they first did it, and it is superior in my eyes. I mean, it is ridiculous, the tricks that they pulled off, because of course, you know, some of the fight scenes are going to be AI based, and they use the cinematography in a way to match that, and it's just so awesome. But not only that, but the story is really well done, and even though when you're watching the film you kind of think you know where the film is headed, you don't. The film heads in all kinds of fun, twisty directions and is never taking its foot off the pedal. It is moving fast and quick, and it's so awesome. I also really like the just near distant future environment and world that it created. It doesn't try and focus on it too much. It's not like Her or anything where it has to really establish this grandiose world, but like Her, I think it provides a familiar oh, I actually could see the future being like that. You know, sometimes sci-fi movies, they go in the very sci-fi direction where everything's flying cars and wacky stuff. But then there's films like this one and Her where it actually is believable and feels kind of not too far off. I cannot recommend Upgrade enough. Seriously, one of my favorite movies I've watched recently. It's a good one to start with if you're not used to horror, because it's not a horror film, but there are some little bits and pieces in there that might get you, and it's oh, if you like that, well, that's horror, so maybe checking out some other stuff. Speaking of checking out some other stuff, let's move on to the moderate horror movie, just a regular horror movie for you guys, and that is The Witch, otherwise known as The VVitch. The VVitch is directed by Robert Eggers in his directorial debut, and it's insane that this was his first film because it does not feel like it. Quick plot synopsis of The Witch. This film takes place in the 1630s, where a Puritan family is banished from their community because of their religious beliefs. They set up their new home outside of a spooky looking forest, and soon mysterious things start happening to the family that might be to blame of a possible witch in the woods. And that's all I really want to say. This is one of those huge atmospheric horror films. If you've seen Hereditary, this one has a lot of the same feelings of that film. It is very slow paced, very moody, a great atmosphere for it, but it is very focused on just immersing you into that world, and you feel like you're in a nightmare and you're not really sure what to trust. The big thing that was really tricky for me going into this film is the language, the dialect that they use, because it is old world English, and Robert Eggers, his attention to detail is impeccable, because not only does the world really feel lived in and feel genuine, but the language and the way these characters talk to each other, that's kind of how they talk. I believe it, and it's hard for me to follow because I'm a dumb American in 2022. So, but if you really immerse yourself in the world and you're okay, all right, let's go. You take the challenge, you get a lot out of it. And also, it doesn't help to maybe pause every now and then and just go to the Wikipedia plot synopsis real quick and just slowly scroll okay, so wait, Okay. All right, I'm following along. Okay. Because sometimes I'll do that if like I'm watching a film and I actually don't know what's going on and I'm a little bored, but I'm like, I feel like I shouldn't be bored, but like I just don't get it. Sometimes I'll do that because I don't want to like just continue being bored, you know? Like I want to, if it's a good film and I've heard it's a good film and I feel like, okay, there are elements that I really like, but maybe I'll just check this real quick. And I'm careful to not accidentally scroll too far to accidentally get the plot spoiled for me. But that's just a little tip that I give to people who might want to check out this film but are immediately turned off by just the accessibility of like, whoa, okay, what's going on? But I enjoyed this film. I definitely need to like watch it again at some point and just like watch more video essays and articles just talking about the film, because that's definitely helped me. This is one of those homework movies where by the end, 9 times out of 10, an audience member is not going to understand really what happened. But the film is really about like religion and how your religious beliefs can actually end up being your undoing through your pride. You are so prideful of who you follow that you end up bringing that pride onto yourself and causing trouble for your family. Also, Anya Taylor-Joy, she's really big right now. This was her film debut, I think, and she was like 18, and it's crazy because she was already like an instant amazing actress. I have no clue how she pulls it off. You also got 2 Game of Thrones actors, the one Greyjoy guy who was in season 2, and then Liza Aaron, that's her name. Yeah, Liza Aaron, the breastfeeding lady. And fun fact, she breastfeeds in this movie too, so maybe that's part of her contract. I must breastfeed in every movie I am in. I know my assets and I will use them. Joking aside, this was a trip that's pretty spooky and scary. There was actually a couple little scares that got me, because this isn't one of those like jump scary, you know, thrill every second kind of horror movie. It's definitely slow, atmospheric, but the atmosphere is great. And there was a couple times where actually they got a jump out of me. I was like, oh, okay, all right, that was good. So definitely check out The Witch as well. And now moving on to the hardcore horror film. And hardcore is an interesting word because on one hand, hardcore maybe means that it has the most opportunity to scare you, which is why I usually use the categories to rank things. In the case of this series, I think hardcore more just leans into the horror films that people mostly are afraid to watch, the ones that dive into the really depraved sides of humanity and show you the really messed up stuff and doesn't shy away from any kind of dark subject matter. And that is where we are going to talk about We Need to Talk About Kevin. I forgot off the top of my head, I think this film came out in 2010, but plot synopsis of this film is very interesting because film stars Tilda Swinton as a mother in present day who slowly has to come to terms with the fact that her son is evil. And her son is played by Ezra Miller, which of course, Ezra Miller's in a whole lot of trouble right now and is very likely like just real life monster and terrible person. So it's very interesting how he played a terrible person, you know, 12 years ago. I wonder where he got it from. The big thing that really blew my mind with this film was the story structure, because the film takes place over the course of 3 different timelines. You have the present day timeline, which is after the event, the big monstrous event that Ezra Miller did. Then we cut to the event itself, little images just slowly revealing what Ezra Miller did. And then we'll also cut to the past when she first met her husband and then got pregnant with Ezra Miller. And then Ezra Miller, I guess he's Kevin, is the character. I keep saying Ezra Miller. Anyway, Kevin is played by 4 different actors. You got the infant, then you got the toddler, then you got the just like kid, like 7, 6 years old, and then you have teenager Ezra Miller. And all of these actors, but especially these main 3 that had to like actually act, great. Like the toddler they got was actually incredible. I don't know how they found like a 2-year-old who could evoke this kind of emotion and just like play this like demented, you know, human being that like from the beginning, like, oh, okay, you might be a psychopath. Like you actually might be just a bad person. Uh-oh. And I don't know how they pulled that off, but they did a fantastic job. The acting in this movie is off the charts. This movie also has John C. Reilly as the father, which was really wacky because I'm used to him in comedies, but he fit very well in this dark, psychological, messed up thriller movie. The story structure is constantly flipping around, so at first you're like, okay, wait, I don't know where we're at right now. Are we in the past? What? But then eventually you catch on to it, and what's so cool about that is it puts us inside Tilda Swinton's fractured mindset, where you can kind of imagine her in present day remembering all these little memories and flashing back, and like it all builds up to this new realization that she hopefully will have in present day. This film was also very uniquely directed. There was lots of scenes where they chose to hide certain information and just leave the shots as is, and it would then hint to horrible things off camera, where, you know, we would see Kevin just sitting still, but then you hear the parents arguing off camera and you like hear like really messed up things, and it's like, wait, Kevin did something, and then it's sort of building up to that. And this film, is dark. There's a reason why it's in the hardcore section. It's not one of those, like, you know, bloody, gory, throw everything in your face, you know, whatever. Like, no, this is art. This is an actual film that has a story to tell, and it just so happens to be a story that delves into horrific, dark subject matter that is also very present in today's society. Because we all think about, like, oh, what made this person do this horrible thing? But we never think about what happens to their family members after they do that horrible thing. And to be a mother of an evil person and be like, oh my God, is this my fault? And sort of that nurture versus nature debate. Where does it fall? Who's to blame? This film has a lot to think about and a lot to research afterwards. I think it is sort of a movie you end up doing homework afterwards, but I think it's a lot cleaner of a story than the VVitch. It's just a bit of a challenge. It definitely demands you to, like, watch every second of it, so that way you're really catching all the details. But I also really enjoyed this film as well. So if you're looking for a dark kind of, like, oh man, this is dark and depressing kind of horror film, but then still has, like, a lot of great meaning behind it and a lot of stuff that makes you think about our day, our society, we need to talk about Kevin. You need to watch that movie. Kevin. But there we go. That is the 3 horror films that I've watched recently. 3 of like a billion. But yeah, definitely check out any of these films, whichever one it tickles your fancy. I'll provide links in the description to rent it on Amazon Prime, which are affiliated links. So if you use those, you're supporting the channel. So that would be awesome. But thank you very much for watching this first edition of Fright Mix. I think I'll stick to that title. I'm not sure yet, but definitely post comments down below of any kind of horror films you would like me to go over in the series. This way I can review a lot more horror films because it's fun and I want to talk about more. Also, let me know what you think of this format and let me know where you fall on the line of horror fans. Are you a newcomer or are you more in the horror buff side? I would like to know. But that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching.